Folgers Coffee, a pioneer in the coffee industry, has a history dating back to 1850. This is when James Folger, at age 14, traveled to San Francisco. He and his two brothers came from Nantucket in search of gold after a major fire destroyed their family's home. While his brothers found work in the mines, Folger found work at a coffee company, the Pioneer Steam Coffee and Spice Mills. The Pioneer Steam Coffee and Spice Mills Company was just starting out. William Bovee was the founder of this company and had hired James Folger as a carpenter to help him build the mill. Back then, roasted coffee was a luxury, and ground coffee was virtually unheard of. Their idea was to provide already roasted and ground coffee to consumers. By 1854, James became a full partner of the Pioneer Steam Coffee Company. Following the Civil War, the economy collapsed, resulting in the business going bankrupt. Folger convinced his creditors to pay off the company's debts, and then he bought it out, renaming the company to J.A. Folger and Company. At this time, almost all of the coffee imported into the U.S. was bought based on appearance. There was no concept of tasting the coffee beans first. Folgers changed this and implemented the technique of cup testing. He started tasting the coffee beans before importing them to redefine the standard of coffee. The company settled on mountain-grown beans because of their superior qualities when it came to taste and aroma. In 1889, James Folger passed away at the age of 54, and his son, James Folger II, took over the growing coffee business. By 1900, the company saw exponential growth. This was mostly due to an energetic salesman named Frank Atha, who expanded sales outside of California. He got grocers in eastern states to stock Folgers coffee, selling it based on its merit and high quality. Frank often assisted grocers with sales, handing out coffee samples from elaborate in-store displays that he designed himself. By 1901, the company had even added a plant in Texas, and by 1905, the company built a new factory on San Francisco's waterfront. Unfortunately, just a year later, the Great San Francisco Earthquake of 1906 hit. While fires spread throughout the city, the U.S. Marines set up headquarters in the Folgers building and pumped water from the bay. During the city's rebuilding, citizens were given free coffee. The company continued to grow throughout the 1920s and 1930s. Better branding and distribution meant that more and more people were able to enjoy a fresh cup of coffee in the morning. Coffee demand continued to increase during World War II, but because of metal shortages, steel was not available for packaging. Folgers coffee was instead packaged in glass jars with wax cardboard lids. After the war, the popularity of instant coffee was on the rise, so in 1953, Folgers released their first instant coffee, but was discontinued shortly after as it was not up to customers' expectations. With time to create one superior to the rest, the new instant Folgers was released in 1958 and experienced tremendous success. Since many shipping routes were changed due to the war, Folgers Coffee decided to establish a new home. New Orleans became one of the hubs of green coffee markets in the country. Thus, Folgers initiated the construction of its coffee factory in New Orleans in 1960, which is still where they roast to this day. In 1963, Folgers was acquired by Procter & Gamble. This acquisition resulted in one of the most successful advertising campaigns in the history of the country. Mrs. Olson, a Swedish lady, was seen recommending Folgers coffee to her neighbors. Mrs. Olson was an instant hit, and it represented Folgers coffee for about 20 years. Shortly after, Folgers quickly became part of the national competition for store-bought coffee brands. Their most notable rival was Maxwell House. Maxwell House formed a Folgers defense team in 1971. The result was Horizon, a coffee that came in a red can similar to Folgers, and a television commercial character named Aunt Cora. Aunt Cora was supposed to take over Mrs. Olson. Folgers decided to lower the price of their coffee to stay competitive, and by the end of the 1970s was well ahead of Maxwell House in sales. The early 1980s brought a new advertising campaign. The slogan, "The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup," was created. The jingle went on to become one of the most talked about and repeated jingles of all time in American culture. Folgers was known for television ads. After Mrs. Olson, Folgers promoted their instant coffee in ads which took the viewer inside various high-end restaurants, while a voiceover whispered to the viewer that they've secretly switched the coffee used at the restaurant with Folgers. One other notable Folgers television ad from 1985, called Peter Comes Home, became associated with Christmas. A college student returns home early one morning, and he and his kid sister make Folgers coffee together. The smell of freshly brewed coffee wakes his parents, and they know their son is home. This one aired yearly for many, many years. Folgers coffee has constantly evolved. It opted for a major change in their packaging in 2002 and introduced the newly developed canisters that were designed to trap the rich aroma of their coffee. Since 2008, Folgers coffee has been part of the J.M. Smucker Company and has been the top coffee brand in the country. With that said, it must still be the best part of waking up.